several European countries have now paused their AstraZeneca vaccine rollout. Let's bring in from Sydney Norman Swan, the presenter of RN's Health Report and the ABC's popular Coronacast. Hey Norman, good morning to you. Now most Australians are scheduled to get this particular vaccine. What's your read on what's happening here?
Well, I mean, they're not stupid people in these countries. They're not scaredy cats in the sense of the vaccine. So they're responding to what needs to be responded to, which is reports of these clots. Now, I just need to do a bit of an explainer here, because what I've been arguing over the last few days is that, and it's true, if you look at the rate of clots, and these are blood clots which spread to the lung, and there have been a few deaths. If you look at the rate in the vaccine population, it appears to be lower than the background rate, which is 1 or 2 per thousand in the community, including Australia. So there's a background rate of these clotting episodes, and the rate in the vaccine population is around about 30 people per 5 million doses, thereabouts. So that's a very low rate in the community. The thing that is worrying people, I suspect, is that there are reports of younger people, because age is a risk factor. The older you are, the more likely you're to get clots. But there seem to be some younger people getting this, and there's a paradox in it. There are these little things in the blood called platelets, which help your blood to clot. And there are people turning up with the clotting problem with low platelets. And now this can occur. You can have a situation where you've got low platelets and you get blood clotting, but it is a bit unusual. And the other issue here is that you can get an antibody situation which creates low blood platelets. And in fact, there was a doctor with the Pfizer vaccine who died of low blood platelets, and there have been 1 or 2 reports of that, again, below the radar. And it's just possible that the vaccines as a whole have a problem with creating antibodies in some people to the platelets and paradoxically causing blood clots. The other thing which would diffuse a lot of this is, I know it sounds very complicated, is that when you get a blood clot in the lung, your platelets can drop because of the blood clot in the lung. So this is incredibly complicated and needs to be tied down. Nobody wants any sort of link to the vaccine, but if there is one, you've got to find it soon. So I've been thinking, oh, well, this is nothing. But in fact, when the low platelet story came out, it rang a bell with the Pfizer story early on early on, I think late last year, and again all below the radar, very, very rare. And if it is linked to the vaccine, which is still very unlikely, it may well be that there's a group of people who should not get the vaccine. So they've really got to tie this down and get it down. It's not necessary. It's got to be taken seriously until they fix it.
So Norman, what would be going on behind the scenes in the Australian Health Department right at the moment? There are people who are going to be waking up in Australia who may be scheduled to be getting the injection today.
Well, what I hear from Europe is that if this has happened and it's truly linked to the Astra, it could be a batch problem. And it's in other words, the batch that was produced, which was distributed within Europe, and I'm not aware that that batch actually is anything to do with what's arrived here from Astra. And that's possible too. So that's the other thing that needs to happen. I think the panicking would be my guess. Behind the scenes, because we've loaded the dice on Astra. If Astra turns out to be a problem, then we've got very little backup here in Australia in terms of immunisation. And if it's linked to COVID vaccines as a whole, then we've got another issue. But I'm running ahead of myself here. The likelihood is that this will be nothing in the end. And if I was due for an Astra vaccine tomorrow or today, I'd have it, because I think it's just an incredibly rare phenomenon.
It is very rare, and as you say, the WHO and AstraZeneca insist there is no real problem, but using, I guess, a very popular phrase in the pandemic, out of an abundance of caution, should the Australian government consider as well suspending the distribution of this vaccine?
I personally don't think so at the moment, but the European Medicines Agency is meeting on Thursday to actually look at the evidence and come out with a conclusion on this. They're across the data. Norway has already said that they don't think it's cause and effect. The Scandinavian countries if it's going to happen anywhere, they're a good place for this to have happened because they have got amazing electronic health records of their population. They will know exactly how many people in their population normally get this sort of problem and be able to compare it. We would struggle in Australia to actually do that comparison. So it's, in a sense, it's good, and Norway's already come out and said there's no cause and effect. So it's just an abundance of caution. I would think it's premature to act. It's a different batch, and let's just see.
Okay, just a quick one, Norman. Where's your level of caution when it comes to what we're seeing in Brisbane and Sydney at the moment with those cases, one each in each state?
Well, I think it calls for, we've still got to maintain, and we've said this over several weeks on the show, the borders are the main story here. We've got to protect the borders, and we've got to protect the people who protect the people who look after the borders and the people who are coming into this country. And it's just yet another example of that. And we just can't do enough tightening, and we've just got to get the Pfizer vaccine out to healthcare workers so that because it works within 3 weeks. We've shown that there's a recent study from the United States, a really good study, showing in people who were having testing done pre-medical procedure, comparing people who were vaccinated with not, and showing that the Pfizer vaccine, even the first dose after 10 days, protected against asymptomatic infection, and very quickly after the second dose. So we've really got to get that vaccine out to those people who are ringing around. And I think this medical registrar and Princess Alexandra, the other issue here is the national guidelines on PPE, which are almost certainly inadequate and still focused on droplet spread gobsmackingly. And it's highly likely this person was not wearing an N95 mask because that's not in the national guidelines.
Norman Swan, we could talk all day. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you for all your insights. So invaluable.
You're welcome, Lisa. Bye, Michael.